There's a lot of like experimental games that, developers will try and make. And a lot of the ideas won't necessarily, hit, and some ideas will. Fortunately, a lot of those games, consumers aren't going to pay money for. So it's nice to see a game like the Gunk be on Game Pass. I felt like it was very clear that this was an experimental game from the developers over at Thunderful, formerly Image and Form Games. They're most known for making the Steamworld games, Steamworld Quest, SteamWorld Dig 1 and 2, SteamWorld Heist. I think there's another one too. So it was nice to see them, leave the 2D, dimension and try a 3D game. So knowing that, the guys from Image and Form slash Thunderful were the ones creating the Gunk, I definitely wanted to give it a shot because I really enjoyed SteamWorld Dig 1 and 2. So here is my review of the Gunk. The first section I'm going to talk about is gameplay. The gameplay in the Gunk is actually surprisingly fun. It's very simple like idea, and basically the concept of the game is you're vacuuming up this sludge like substance off of the planet because this gunk is all over the planet and is essentially, killing all life there. So you wouldn't necessarily think that vacuuming up something would be that fun of a game, but sometimes random ideas like for example mowing the lawn in a game can actually be kind of fun. I'd actually say that the vacuuming aspect, like vacuuming up the gunk in this game, was surprisingly addicting. For some reason, it was just really satisfying to clean up the area. And then once you clean up that, infected area or corrupted area is what I believe it's called, just to like see all of the surrounding area come back to life was pretty cool. Some of the other aspects of the game was platforming. I found the platforming to be a bit uninspired in this game, but maybe I'm just incredibly harsh on platforming because I speedrun Super Mario 64 and I just find that game to be flawless. And I always compare everything like in platforming in games to that game, and maybe that's unfair. It wasn't that the platforming was necessarily bad. It didn't seem like all that creative and just felt like kind of like an element of the game that was just tacked on. There was also some puzzles in the game which, used like the vacuum. I thought that was cool. I personally felt like they could have done more with it, but overall I enjoyed the puzzles in the game and I found some of them to be creative, but it was clear that they really just wanted to focus on the vacuuming up of the gunk being the main core gameplay element here. There weren't a lot of enemies in the game, so I don't want to like necessarily judge the game on that. And there was a couple boss fights, and one of them was just totally broken for me. I don't know if anybody else found that to be the case. There was one, it was like you're basically like fighting this like bull like creature and he'll like charge at you. And instead of him charging at me, he just constantly kept running to this thing in the middle of like the boss fight area and he never charged at me a single time. But again, I know that like combat boss fights weren't a huge, focus of the game. So I don't want to like be too critical of that. The game overall is pretty easy too. I don't really think it was designed to be difficult. It's designed to be a short, 4 to 6 or 7 hour game. You play the story, you vacuum up the gunk, you're done. But overall, it's surprisingly good. You would not think the concept would be that fun, but it was surprisingly fun to play. I will say though that it definitely left the impression that this was a trial run for the developer to, essentially get some more experience with creating a 3D game. Maybe this is a test to create a, 3D SteamWorld game. Maybe we'll get like a platformer for SteamWorld or like a 3D SteamWorld Dig. That actually sounds kind of sick. Yeah, that actually sounds like a great idea. Overall, for the gameplay section, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 though. Next section is graphics. I don't have a ton of thoughts on the graphics of the game. I've said this previously. Graphics aren't a make or break thing for me in video games. It can definitely add to an experience, it can definitely take away from an experience, but normally it's not going to totally ruin or totally make the experience. I will say though that I was impressed by the graphics in this game. Like coming from games like SteamWorld, which, has good art style, but, it's 2D. You can only do but so much with 2D graphics, unless you are the Ori devs, because the graphics in that game are pretty amazing. But I thought it was very, very solid graphically. Both the landscape and the gunk had great art style, great art direction. The one thing I'm critical of is the player design in this game. It just felt very out of place. Like the setting is beautiful, going from like the corrupted area and bringing it back to life and making it look so great with all the vegetation and whatnot. It just felt like the character models in the game left a little bit to be desired. Like it almost felt like a mismatch. Like the characters should have been in a different game. Like the graphics of the setting was almost more realistic, and then the graphics of the character model were very fake looking. But even with what I would consider poor graphics for the character model, I'd still give the graphics section an 8 out of 10. Now, the next section, and the one I'm probably going to be the most critical of, is the story of the game. If there was one reason to not play this game, it would be the story. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't anything special. The overall story was actually okay, but unfortunately, the overall story was kind of overshadowed by what happened during the bulk of the game. There was one character in particular that actually drove me insane. It's kind of like your companion who runs the ship with you. The character's name was Bex. And basically, the idea of Bex is that she's like a huge worrier. So while your character, Ronnie, is running around the planet, cleaning up the planet, Bex is always back watching over the base, and she's just worried that you're not okay. It's understandable that she'd be worried you're on a foreign planet that you're not used to, but boy, did she not shut up about it the entire game. Like, anytime anything happened, anytime you saw the gunk, anytime you go to a new area, it's like, okay, are you gonna come back now? Like, okay, are you being okay? Are you safe? Oh man, I was so worried about that. Like, after a while, like, I like wanted to mute the game. It was so annoying. I thought her character kind of wrapped up all right. She had like an okay arc at the end of the game. It kind of brought some closure to why she was such a worrywart. It didn't like make up for the fact that she was so annoying the whole game, I guess. I'd say that the game overall didn't leave a lot of room open for a sequel. I don't think the game was necessarily popular enough that Thunderful would want to make a sequel. I think they'll probably go back to Steamworld after this. If they did decide to make a sequel, I'd have to think that based off the way the story went, they'd have to go in a completely different direction and have to call it something else, and the core gameplay mechanic wouldn't be the gunk. I could be wrong, but it just seemed like it would maybe be a stretch. Again, the overall story was alright. The world you're in's pretty cool, and like the beginning and the end was cool, but the entire bulk of the game basically was just like annoying. And that's like not something you would want to be like one of the main describing attributes of your game. So for story, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. So overall, I would say this is a pretty solid game. It definitely felt like a trial run, like I was saying earlier, to make like a 3D Steamworld or to create another new IP. If you're looking for like a short little bite-sized game, again, I think that I finished in under 4 hours of gameplay. I would recommend it. I thought it was pretty fun. The gameplay was nice. Maybe just mute your TV though. Again, ultimately, it would be hard to say that the game's anything special. It's not bad. It's not great. It felt like they probably could have done a little bit more, made a slightly better story, a little less annoying, maybe done a little bit more with the gameplay aspect. But overall, I would say it was enjoyable. So with all that being said, the total score I'm going to give the game is a 66 out of 100. All right. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you want me to review more Game Pass games, please let me know in the comments below. I want to thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Peace out.